Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to the most electrifying podcast in all of internet radio today. You are listening to the Sports Wire. Today is Friday, November 1st, 2019, and here's your daily dose of the Sports Wire. My name is Vinny Apicella, and I want to thank you again to all the listeners out there who are downloading and listening to the podcast. Of course, as you know, we did move to anchor.fm, so definitely go over to them if you're looking to start your own podcast. And you can find SportsWire on any platform that you listen to your favorite podcasts on, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, etc., etc., etc. And I want to thank you again for listening, for tuning in. So we've got a jam-packed episode for you today. We're going to talk about the two major topics that are going on. First of all, WWE Crown Jewel was a great success. Couple of notes from that. And also some bad news for tonight's SmackDown. Also, I did watch AEW from Wednesday night, and I'll give you some feedback on that. I don't know. Ultimately, it was a great episode. Ultimately, it won me over, so to speak. Also, I've had some on Twitter. Let's get started with AEW, and then I'll get into the WWE afterwards. Start with AEW Dynamite this past week. They're really doing great with the storytelling when it comes to Cody and Jericho at Full Gear coming up next Saturday. And I have to say that with the addition of the 3-judge panel, if the match goes to a 60-minute draw, I think it's great. Honestly, I really, truly do. I think it's great. With that said, I really have to question the rest of the card. And the reason why I say that is, so it's going to be Hangman Adam Page against Pac, the former Neville. And that match, okay, I think it's going to be a good match. Two great athletes. Pac is currently undefeated in AEW. Hangman Page has an axe to grind, and he has something to prove. He's been on quite a losing streak lately, and he's got to turn that around if he's going to be one of the upper echelon of the AEW team, group, promotion. Also, you've got another lights-out, unsanctioned match between Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega. Now, this is already, I believe, the third or fourth lights-out, unsanctioned match since Double or Nothing. And that's when the promotion kicked off, was Double or Nothing. That was their first show. That was their debut. And they're kind of killing the gimmick by doing it so often. Now, obviously, if you've been a fan of wrestling for years and years and years, and I'm talking back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, etc., during the territory era, a lights out refers to the fact that it's an unsanctioned match, of course. But if you watched, I believe it was Fyter Fest or Fight for the Fallen, I forget which one it was. I think it was Fyter Fest, where they had it was Fyter Fest, where they had Jon Moxley against Joey Janela, excuse me, in the lights out match. And what they do is they turn off the lights for about 30 seconds, turn it back on, just to show that the main event, the main show has been finished, and whatever happens afterwards is unsanctioned and doesn't count in the record book, so to speak. So they've already done this, obviously, that one time. Then I believe they had an unsanctioned match on AEW Dark with Kenny Omega and Joey Janela, I believe. Janela was in the other one. So this is like the third time or fourth time in less than a year that they've had this gimmick of a lights out unsanctioned match. And now that's kind of a throwback, and it's more along the lines of like a hardcore match or Extreme Rules in the WWE, Falls Count Anywhere, anything goes, no disqualification, whatever you want to call it. And I honestly feel like they're doing this too much. Like, I do like the story they're giving with, Tony Khan telling Jon Moxley that he's off the rails, he's too dangerous, They have to not sanction the match. It's not going to count in the record books, whatever, yada, yada, yada. I like that. I think that's really good. And I really feel like that would be, that's kind of going with the character of Jon Moxley. And I like that. But I do feel like they need to kind of space out the gimmicks like, WWE does with, having Hell in a Cell on its own pay-per-view, Money in the Bank on its own pay-per-view. They don't normally, other than a few times, they don't normally have a Hell in a Cell outside of that Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Now, sometimes they do, but more likely they don't. Same thing with the Elimination Chamber. They, do it once in a while. They space it out. So AEW just has to be mindful of that because they're going to end up ruining the gimmick and it'll just end up not really meaning much. You know what I mean? It won't be a special blow-off type of match. Also, SCU are your new AEW Tag Team Champions. I know this is not news for you if you've heard it, if you've watched or whatever. It's, and it wasn't really news to me. I just kind of wanted to watch the episode and kind of give my thoughts on it. I liked it, and I liked the fact that it ended with a small package because you go through all of the, there's no more finishing moves in wrestling. I'm convinced. They're just signature moves, and I get that. And even those are kind of few and far between because there's so many people who do the same moves now. But with that said, ending it with a small package I think was actually great, because it was unexpected. It was something that was just, it was there. Scorpio Sky has proven to me that he's definitely the breakout star of SCU. Now, I know, SCU's been around for a while, and all three guys have been around, at least 15 years. So they're not young chickens. And Kazarian has been around, and Christopher Daniels, I think, at one point competed in WCW and was a possible choice for the greater power character in the WWE back during the Monday Night Wars. So, he's been around for over 20 years now. And I know he works in the office of AEW, talent relations, whatever. I know that. So, he'll obviously be there. But I honestly feel like Scorpio Sky is going to be a huge, huge single star in the future, rolling out of SCU. So that was absolutely great. Again, the women's match I really wasn't too fond of. And then they had the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega taking on Team Hybrid 2 and Kip Sabian. The match was okay at best. A lot of flips, a lot of dives. And you know what I don't like, especially in Young Bucks matches, and I saw this in the Lucha Brothers match, SCU match too, but there's a lot of obvious cooperation there. And what am I, we all know it's work. We all know it's choreographed, and we know that they're working together, and I get that. We all know it. But to have it obvious in the ring where a guy is just waiting there for you to do something, that doesn't work for me, brother. And it's like slap kind of, you can't push out the suspend your disbelief and think it's a real fight when you actually see guys cooperating. And I'm not saying it was a spot fest or people weren't selling anything, which is more often the case now, but it was more along the lines of, well, here, I'm going to wait for this guy to do this to me. When honestly, you should be kicking and screaming. Like, you shouldn't be just waiting there for somebody to come and super kick you or look like you're confused about what's going on next and get kicked in the face or whatever. It just, especially in the Young Bucks match, but I did see it in the SCU versus Lucha Brothers match as well, but especially in the Young Bucks match. Oh, excuse me. And especially in the Young Bucks matches, I always see that kind of, cooperation going on. And it's ridiculous. It really, truly is ridiculous. And they need to work on their timing and get better in wrestling, but they definitely need to work on their timing in order to get that fixed. So it looks like it's a seamless transition or It really looks like, they're fighting and something is going on logically. Because I know trying to add logic to an illogical situation doesn't always work, but sometimes you got to be able to use your brain and have the good psychology behind it. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. All right. I will be right back after this message, and I'll get into the AEW. Get into WWE Crown Jewel right after this. Welcome back to the Sports Wire. Again, my name is Vinny Apicella, and thank you for listening once again to the Sports Wire right here on Anchor.fm. I want to thank you all again. With that said, I want to get into WWE Crown Jewel, and I want to say that the event itself was absolutely fantastic. It was the best Saudi Arabian match event that they've done since this whole Saudi Arabian initiative has started, and capped off by the fact that it had the first ever women's match in Saudi Arabia with Natalya and Lacey Evans. And that match itself wasn't great. It was going to be just an exhibition. A lot of it was ground wrestling. It wasn't a lot of, punching, kicking, whatever. A lot of it was mat-based wrestling. And Natalya ended up winning with the sharpshooter. And honestly, and they hugged afterwards. I knew it wasn't going to be a great match. It was just going to be the exhibition just to say, you know what? We got it. We did it. We put on a women's match in Saudi Arabia. And the match itself was awesome. The event itself, the fact that the match happened was awesome. Let me rephrase that. The event itself was awesome. And right from the beginning, with the 20-man battle royal on the kickoff show for the winner to face AJ Styles for the U.S. title in the end, in the actual event, Humberto Carrillo, the hot upstart who's been on the past couple of Raws having some great matches, ended up winning. And the way he won was actually really, really good. I liked it. Luke Harper went to go eliminate Carrillo. And while Harper was trying to eliminate Carrillo, Eric Rowan came from behind to eliminate Luke Harper. And in turn, Carrillo slid under the ropes back through the legs of Rowan to then pick up and eliminate Eric Rowan for Carrillo to win. It was a great battle royal. I was kind of upset because on yesterday's show, I had heard the rumors of either Buddy Murphy or Aleister Black. Aleister Black wasn't even on the event, so I don't know where that came from. But Humberto Carrillo got the match and got the victory in that. It was great. Then you had Cesaro and Mansoor on the card. That was a great match. Mansoor is very underrated. And the fact that he's from Saudi Arabia, from Riyadh, it was great to see him win the match in his home country, in his hometown. You had Brock Lesnar and Cain Velasquez in the opening match of the card for the WWE Championship, and it lasted maybe 2 minutes. And Brock ended up winning by having Kane tap out to the Kimura lock. And you know what? It was what it was. I'm not going to say it was good. I'm not going to say it bad. It was Kane signed a long-term deal with the WWE. So, they had the star power going into Saudi Arabia. They had the star power for this. And, the rematch, 9 years in the making. Brock wants to avenge his loss. Or will lightning strike twice and have Kane defeat Brock in his first match for the WWE title like he did the UFC. So it was what it was, and it looked like a typical MMA fight. Kane was giving out some kicks. They blocked up a little bit. They brawled. It wasn't obviously it wasn't really a professional wrestling match. There were no clotheslines. There were no, Hurricane Ranas or anything. It was simply a brawl. And then Brock got Kane in the Kimura lock, and that was it. Kane tapped out. And I get it. So, you know what? It was what it was. Brock kept the title, and then Mysterio afterwards went crazy with a chair and started beating up on Brock. But then, you know, Brock ended up beating up on Mysterio, and then Velasquez with the F5, and then Mysterio started hitting Brock with chairs again. So, all in all, it kind of, all in all, it kind of was what it was. You know, it was good for what it was. All right, and I know I repeated myself about 30 times in that one segment, but whatever. Moving on to the tag team turmoil match to determine the best tag team in the world, and it turned out to be the OC, and it was good. You know, I liked it. The New Day had a little bit of a run there for a little while. You know, until what the hell are their names? Heavy Machinery came in, and then Heavy Machinery, you know, had a couple of wins, and then they met up with the OC, and the last team ended up being the Viking Raiders. Good match. OC ended up winning, and I liked it. I did. Does that give them a shot at the tag titles? I don't know, but I would have liked to see the Usos come out. You know, they have AOP. I haven't really seen AOP on the past couple of shows, unless the Hulu version cut them out. But they still have the Usos. I don't know where they've been. I mean, I know that, you know, they had that one DUI, so or one of them that got into the verbal altercation with the cop, but they've been off TV now for like 3 months. So let's get them back. Let's get them back. Let's see. After that, you know, you had like I said, the Mansoor and Cesaro match was good. Then you had the women's match, and Natalya and Lacey Evans really, you know, I'm not saying they went all out. It wasn't, you know, one of these high-flying women's matches, but it was a victory nonetheless for everybody, for the country of Saudi Arabia. So definitely big props to Natalya and Lacey Evans and the WWE in general for getting this going. This is hope. This is good towards change. Then you had Team Hogan and Team Flair. Roman Reigns, Ricochet, Rusev, Chad Gable, and Ali. And no, I will never call Chad Gable Shorty G. So don't even think about it. Okay? Matter of fact, I'm about ready to write to the WWE to say change it back. That's ridiculous. Anyways, with Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart in their corner against Team Flair, which was Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, Shinsuke Nakamura, and King Corbin, with Ric Flair and actually Lana in their corner. Lana came out with Bobby Lashley. Of course, they couldn't do too much of that storyline in the Saudi Arabian country for a couple of reasons. One, they don't want to put out any public display of affection in that country, especially when it's a guy cheating or a woman cheating on his wife, on her husband, because the Muslim laws on that are strict, and one or both of them could have been stoned or beheaded. So they didn't really go into too much of that storyline. There was no making out on the event, but that match was great. Everybody had their time in there, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was a great match. Team Hogan ended up winning, and then I would have loved to see, Team Hogan in the ring, all of them posing. Hogan must pose, but Roman Reigns got the victory, and it was a great match. It really was. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And then your main event of the night was Seth Rollins, the WWE Universal Champion, putting the title on the line in a Falls Count Anywhere match against The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. And the stipulation was that the match could not be stopped for any reason other than pinfall or submission. So, with that said, we have a new WWE Universal Champion, The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. Now that puts the WWE in kind of a pickle, because The Fiend is a SmackDown superstar, having the Universal title. So both titles are on SmackDown now, both world titles. Do you, put The Fiend on Raw, just have The Fiend go to Raw because with the title? Do you B, transfer Brock to Raw to keep the Universal title on SmackDown? Do you C, have The Fiend versus Brock to unify the titles to keep them on SmackDown? What do you do? Or do you have The Fiend be on Raw and Bray Wyatt be on SmackDown? Or have Seth go to SmackDown and Bray go to Raw because of the championship change to keep the rosters quote-unquote even? I don't know. Or is Bray just a future draft considerations from the Alexa Bliss Nikki Cross trade? So we don't know how it's going to be. We'll find out, I'm sure, tomorrow on SmackDown. However, that brings me to another issue that's going on with SmackDown. It might not have what it was meant to. Oh, I totally forgot. Braun Strowman and Tyson Fury. That match was good for what it was. And I will never say that it was bad, but, I mean, it wasn't the greatest Braun match. Braun had to clearly lead the way, and Tyson really couldn't take bumps, but it was a good match nonetheless. Tyson did what he could. He did great in his first match, and he's a huge WWE fan, so he hasn't ruled out working with them in the future. Of course, he is an undefeated boxing champion. And Braun ended up losing by countout when I think they just played off the fact that Tyson is a boxer. Tyson gave him a right hand. Braun fell off the ring apron and couldn't make the count back in for 10. And, Michael Cole's yelling, it's a technical knockout. I think they were just playing off the fact that Tyson Fury is a boxer. So, instead of pinning Braun, they just had him lose by countout with a technical knockout, supposedly. So, again, it was a pretty good match. It was what it was. And then the match between Humberto Carrillo and AJ Styles for the U.S. Championship. AJ won. We knew that was going to happen. He was going to keep the title. But Humberto Carrillo continues to astound everybody and impress a lot of people. And they had a really good match. So, like I was saying with SmackDown tonight, apparently there were problems either in the Buffalo airport or problems with the WWE's plane, their second plane. Some of their talent were able to leave on one plane, but some of their talent is still, at this time, as far as I know, stuck in Saudi Arabia. From what I've heard, it's either weather conditions in Buffalo because it's very windy, therefore, they can't land there, so the flight's been delayed, or there have been issues with the plane itself, like and I don't know about engine issues, but definitely issues with the plane. I don't think it was political. I don't think they were being held because of like a Vader incident from Kuwait in the 90s. I don't think it's like that. I think it's just either plane issues or weather issues, and that's probably So we'll see what SmackDown looks like. I don't know who got out and who didn't. I would assume that some of the earlier guys were able to get out, but I honestly don't know. And this is kind of like why I'm going to get to my next part. My next part is I've started muting and not even just blocking, but unfollowing a lot of these so-called wrestling journalists because they're so anti-WWE that they can't write anything positive about WWE at all. And take Crown Jewel, take this. So some people were upset, why is it Natty and Lacey? Okay, it doesn't matter who's in the match, it's the match itself. And then there, Dave Meltzer, the plane was quote unquote delayed, in Saudi Arabia, basically saying, without saying it, that they did something wrong and WWE's in trouble. Then you had, you have somebody saying, "Oh, the event was horrible," and I'm glad they're using their blood money for this. Listen, the money that Saudi Arabia paid the WWE is not blood money. Okay, it is money for a contract for a contracted number of events that the WWE are performing in that country. And with that said, they're going to perform for their fans. And the way the fans erupted today for Natty and Lacey during that women's match, the pops they got before and after the match, knowing they were witnessing history and they were a part of history, and the little girls in the crowd that were so happy, that had tears of joy, that's why the WWE goes over to Saudi Arabia. The money may be part of it, but that's to hold up their end of the contract. The superstars go over to entertain their fans, and that's it. They're not going over to please the government. They're not going over to entertain the government. They're going to entertain their fans. And that's all there is to it. And for anybody else who wants to joke or wants to turn off WWE or boycott WWE or boycott the events, F off. Because, number one, what have you done to try to change the world? WWE is doing a lot. Okay? And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So we'll see you tomorrow, right here on the Sports Wire. Remember to go ahead and follow us on Sports Wire. Follow us, or follow me on Twitter at the Episode SWE. You can follow the Sports Wire on both Twitter and Instagram at Sports Wire Audio. You can also go to YouTube, youtube.com/SportsWireAudio. Email sportswireaudio@gmail.com, and then www.sportswireaudio.com. Remember, listen to our shows from Anchor.fm. Feel free to support the podcast with the link that's on the player where you do get the episode on Anchor.fm. But you can listen to us anywhere, on any platform. Just go ahead and hit that subscribe button and give us a 5-star review. Thank you all for listening. I will be back tomorrow. My name is Vinny Apicella. Good night, everybody.